Power up. Welcome to Energypreneurs, where I bring to you the exciting new opportunities in solar power, battery, and electric cars. I'm your host, Sohail Hasni. I have been tracking and analyzing these technologies on LinkedIn and Twitter for more than 10 years. Now we meet on podcast. Okay, Giovanni.
Hello.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Sohail. It's a pleasure to reconnect with you after a few months that we were not in touch.
Yes. I mean, you were the country director for Asian Development Bank in Kazakhstan, and suddenly you vanished. What happened? Are you retired? What are you doing? You must be doing something very exciting, no?
Well, you rightly said I was country director for Asian Development Bank in Kazakhstan for a total of 4 years. Actually, a year and 2 days ago, that was my last day in that position. And, well, in the Asian Development Bank, then next step after you serve as a country director would be either moving to another country in the same position or going back to headquarters and finding some other job in headquarters. Most of the times, country directors happen to be, for a certain period of time, advisors, warming up chairs here and there, and then maybe they may find some other interesting job. In my case, I decided to take an early retirement package that I was offered a few months earlier because, I really like Kazakhstan. I like this country, Central Asia in general. I found the country a very interesting place to where professionals who have been thinking about promoting economic development can have an interesting ground for expressing themselves because there's a lot of obviously issues very specific to the country. And I'm married to a Japanese. I spent many years in Tokyo, in Japan, before joining ADB, and I'm from Italy. And it so happened that Kazakhstan falls right in the middle between Italy and Japan, and you can easily stop over Almaty or Nur Sultan whenever you travel from one country to the other. Our kids, we have 3 kids. The mix between Japan and Italy, they look Kazakh. And so we are kind of well integrated there. So now I decided, to continue doing some activities somehow related to ADB, but I'm not, neither aspiring to become a consultant for ADB, or at least for now. Many people who, after they retire, they even want to anticipate their time. There is a cool-off period of a year for starting, working, serving as consultants for ADB. I don't have that one, at least for, the next few years in my perspective, working pipeline. What I'm doing, I decided to, to get accept the offer of locals to serve in my capacity as an economist, in particular as a development and financial economist. So the main job that I'm doing is I'm serving as a special advisor to the governor of the National Bank of Kazakhstan, NBK. Is a person whom I got to know pretty much well in my previous position as country director. He used to serve as deputy prime minister of Kazakhstan. Then he was appointed, governor of the National Bank. And when he knew that I was leaving, then actually I got an offer from him maybe 1.5 months after I left ADB, and I happily accepted that. And also I'm serving as member in the board member in some national companies in Kazakhstan. And it so happened that I also established my own consulting company. It's an advisory company that focuses, in fact, on sustainable development. In Kazakhstan, there is an international financial center called AIFC, Astana International Financial Center. This company is called Q Advisory, and it's registered at AIFC. We have a license for business and management consulting. And then with that company, I'm trying to be active in this area, with corporate as well as institutional clients, looking into, issues related to sustainable development, financial development, and linking Asia with Europe, in particular, focusing on Central Asia. Now I am currently in Dubai, as an extension of that work. In fact, I'm also looking into Islamic finance and how to promote, further help diffuse among different financial instruments, also Islamic finance. And that is not only limited to Kazakhstan, but also extends beyond the country itself, but covers Central Asia. In particular now, Uzbekistan is extremely active in many different fronts, including on deepening this, different types of financial intermediation, including Islamic finance. And we are operating some of those activities from here, from Dubai. I'm also trying to enjoy myself and my life more than I was doing before when I was in ADB, because ADB is very demanding in terms of timing. So now you can organize your time more freely, and that means I want to spend more time with my family. My wife is in Japan. I just came back from Tokyo, stayed there with the kids for some time. So trying to take advantage of, although, with the coronavirus, situation is a bit difficult to travel, obviously, and that's a limitation. But in a nutshell, I would say I am greatly enjoying, this retirement life. In fact, it's not retirement life. I'm simply doing different types of.
That's what I was saying. Where do you see retirement? I think you're more busy than you were before. So you have to find another time for it.
I think it's not only me. I see many people, I'm not yet 60. Next year, I will be 60 years old. So when you are at this age, you already accumulated certain experience. If you want, you know how to channel this energy, that experiences. And so retirement is really just an administrative word that you have when you deal with ADB and when you want to receive your pension and you say, I'm retired in that sense. But with regard to activities and work, it's quite the opposite. And I think it's quite, it's fun. So I'm really enjoying, this new life that I have after ADB. Sorry if I was a bit long.
No, this is good. This is an interesting concept that retirement is today, as you defined, is an administrative term. It's no longer means anything, no? I mean, just talking to you, what you had explained in the last few minutes, you are more busy than you were before.
Well, you see,
so those days are gone, no?
No, let me qualify. I think we are privileged. We are lucky guys in a way, because we can, having worked about 20 years for an international organization like ADB, gives you that privilege that you can choose. In our countries, many people, unfortunately, they have to work until very, late in their career, and they may not have that kind of luxury. It's also true that, people like us, we have, invested initial years of our professional engagement in studying. So, when you do postgraduate studies, you start a bit later than others. So it's a bit, it's difficult to generalize, but in general, at this age, I think if you have some energy still, you don't want to sit down and just, retire, so to speak, but trying to be active and to contribute in different different
You
ways.
also do taekwondo, right? You are very active.
Well, it's something like taekwondo. It's called aikido,
Aikido.
and
Sorry, my
I've
apologies.
been doing this aikido, yes, for maybe 40 years, and I'm still doing it quite irregularly. Yeah, that maybe it's also part of this approach to life in a way.
So, how do you find the cultural difference? You mentioned, of course, you are super multicultural. You are an Italian married to a Japanese, lived in the Philippines for 20 odd years, plus lived in Kazakhstan. Now, working in Kazakhstan with a local government, how do you find the cultural differences in Central Asia? It's a mysterious place for many people, no?
Well, I think it's a mysterious place because people don't know about these countries. Most of these countries in Central Asia, if you exclude the Caucasus, they end by stan. And now, everybody these days actually talking about Afghanistan. And, either they associate it with some um, um, situations which are, very specific to certain countries, or simply they don't know what these countries are. The population is also relatively small. Not many people actually live in Central Asia. And so far, development and focus of geopolitics, I would say, has been traditionally, of course, in Europe and US, but then on East Asia or Southeast Asia. Moving then to Central Asia is something a bit more recent. Nothing, there were not many reasons, I guess, for focusing so much on Central Asia before, but now this issue of connectivity between, and again, the East and the West, Asia and Europe is becoming quite a prominent aspect of, in many different ways, culturally, but also economically. You see that, everybody talks about the Belt and Road Initiative of the People's Republic of China, that, in a way is putting back a lot of centrality and effort and attention to this part of the world. And the best way to recall it, I guess, is the Silk Road, and how the Silk Road, in fact, has been playing a tremendously important role for connecting regions, for sharing knowledge, for trade and many other, aspects that are now integral part of our life. So. With that, your question is about the cultural differences is, having lived, being, as you mentioned, an Italian who moved to Japan like 30 plus years ago, the real cultural difference I saw was in the Far East, was in Japan for sure, very different from European culture. Then even China, obviously, is quite different. But now, paradoxically, coming to Central Asia, I can see and find a lot of traits which connect me with Europe deeply. It's not only the facial features of people, but also is the behavior, is the way how they interact socially, is the approach of individuals in circles and in the families in general. So in fact, I found many more similarities, let's say, to Europe, to Italy, in Kazakhstan than the ones that I found, in China or in Japan, so to speak. Obviously, a major difference is the nature of Kazakh people who come from a nomadic tradition. And we in Europe have been settled down and became farmers like 5,000 years ago. Kazakhs became farmers 50 years ago. So that difference makes, expresses itself in many different ways in cultural expressions. So the nomadic life of Central Asians, in particular of Kazakhs, is a major difference with Europe. But in terms of acceptance of being, somebody external who, moves to Kazakhstan and works there, actually, I would say that perhaps it is the least discriminatory country I ever, lived in. I don't feel any, discrimination to non-locals. I think it's a very much a multicultural society. They've been used again to interact with many different people. Again, the Silk Road, and I found extremely easy and an extremely, so to speak, but don't misunderstand with this word, but an open society. Open society, not in the philosophical sense that people associate now recently with Popper, let's say, or other scholars recently, but open in the sense that it accepts easily everybody, and it's easy to work there.
Yeah, I mean, I before I started working in Central Asia, one of my friend in Melbourne was fascinated about Central Asia and Kazakhstan. So when I tell him today that I go to these places, he really sort of gets angry, saying, how? I mean, I never managed. So for those listeners who have never been to places like Kazakhstan, can you explain a bit what to expect if somebody arrives in Kazakhstan? Because everyone knows Kazakhstan from that odd Hollywood movie, right? I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah, Kazakhstan is a very strong culture. I mean, even Astana, the characters are so strong, no?
Okay, so you see, again, let me go back to the concept of Silk Road. Cities and settlements along the Silk Road, even now, they're not anymore confined with, they are now confined within different states or different nations. They're very similar in a way, in terms of climatic condition and in terms of, ways of how peoples behave, let's put it this way. So in that sense, Almaty, maybe not so different. Almaty, which is the largest city in the southern part of Kazakhstan, is not so different to Tashkent or to Taraz or to other major cities, or Samarkand, for example, other major cities along the Silk Road. But even then, you look at Kazakhstan, within Kazakhstan, then you go to the north. Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country in the world, so it's very big. And the capital city now is in a city, it's a place called Nur Sultan, or used to be Astana, until a few years ago. And the distance is 1,400 kilometers. And so the scenery that you see, the kind of life that you observe within Kazakhstan, in Almaty and Astana, are very different. So in a way, it's difficult to have a homogeneous description of how the country, Kazakhstan itself could be. But so you can find really also, you cannot find the sea. Because it's a landlocked country. Although there is a Caspian Sea, but Caspian Sea is not properly classified as a sea. But apart from Caspian Sea, it's landlocked. In terms of nature, the southern part and the east part of Kazakhstan, there are beautiful mountains. There is Tian Shan, mountain chain that goes up to 7,000 meters in a mountain called Han Tengri, which is in the corner between Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and China. And from there, you can easily reach the southern part of the country. Almaty is a place where, I live there now. In the morning, I open the windows of my apartment and wow, there's a scenery of these beautiful mountains in front of you. And that gives you, a sense of energy, an energetic feeling, because you are in the nature and you see this beauty of the nature. Until you turn your head 180 degrees, and if you face the opposite side from the mountains, you see all these CHPs, which is the coal and heating plants that are polluting all the environment. So on the one hand, you have those, beautiful nature in many different ways. There is a desert in the western part of Kazakhstan. The steppes also, they have a lot of, beauty that you can find from huge distances, large spaces where you can, by car or horse, go and go and go, and you cannot find anybody there. So, that sense, there are sceneries and landscapes that it's very difficult. But at the same time, as I was hinting, the country, because it's very rich of natural resources, including coal, including oil and gas, they find it extremely, cheap to use, coal for generating energy. And there you see pollution. And I don't know how long this is going to still last, but I suspect it's not going to change overnight. So on the one hand, you see beautiful nature. On the other hand, you still see a country which is struggling to enter into a different path of development, where they really start focusing on renewable energies sources. So it's a country so big, there are lots of contradictions as well from this point of view.
So now that you are part of the government, are you pushing electric vehicle? Come on, let's do some electric vehicle projects in Kazakhstan, no?
Well, I am not part of the government. I'm advising the central bank governor, which is not government, but I tend, frankly, I try to have a loud voice with regard to green economy issues in general, since I started working in Kazakhstan as a country director. What I can do now is kind of marginal with respect to what I was able to do when I was country director, obviously, because you leverage many different things. And I think with the help of United Nations, UN organizations based in Kazakhstan, we were able in 2018 to introduce a new overall framework for the country on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, which was not there before. They come up every now and then with new economic development plans, strategies for this and that. And despite, of course, Kazakhstan is signatory in the Paris Agreement, and of course, they say all the right things when they are in international fora, but de facto, these SDGs principles were not reflected at all in the strategic development plan of government. So, being a country director for ADB, I had an opportunity to contribute introducing this framework on SDGs, and part of this, of course, it's about climate change. Part of this is about reducing a level of pollution in the country and gradually shifting from fuel-based different engines in general, let's say, to electrical engines. So before, start talking about electric cars, what we did in Kazakhstan when I was there as country director, we introduced some cleaner energy technologies, let's say, for example, in a country as cold as Kazakhstan, it could be, Sweden or Finland or Canada. Many people, what they do at night, when it is winter, they ignite their cars and they own them. Otherwise, in the morning when they go and start up their cars, they will be frozen because it's -30, -40, too cold. And so far, they've been turning their cars on and consuming a lot of oil, of course, because that's the only way how they were going to do that. But actually, we were able to introduce this electricity-based ignition system, whereby now we introduced this. We changed some parts in the engines of the cars, connected with the grid, with the electrical grid, and with the remote controller. Now I don't know how many people at the moment are doing that, but I guess about maybe 15,000 cars already have been converted into this technology, whereby you save on oil and use electricity to do that. This is not electrical car as you suggested, but it's a step towards cleaner energy. A big move, I would say, towards possible adoption of electric cars in a country as Kazakhstan, I believe, is related with development of batteries. Yeah, right, because it's lithium batteries that have been undergoing tremendous technological improvement in the next few years. Now they are allowing to run these electric cars also in countries as cold as Kazakhstan. Again, the southern part, Almaty, winter is cold but relatively milder than in the north, in Nur Sultan, where you easily go to -30, -40. So still, it's more difficult to introduce electric cars fully in the north. But in Almaty, I would say there are electric buses already being introduced, and some individuals have already started, using Teslas. And a friend of mine happened to have a Tesla in Almaty, and I've been riding on it a few times. Of course, not many electric cars you can still see around, but stations are being are being created, and so. During the last 1.5 years, I would say that I've been witnessing quite an increase of electric cars, especially in Almaty. Not everywhere in Kazakhstan, but Almaty is on the forefront of that.
So are there any government incentives, or these are just people who are early adopters, just want to go and buy something in Europe and drive, no?
No, if you have, for buses, these are part of government incentives, but these also are municipal programs. So, for example, Almaty, we helped, including Almaty in a program for low carbon development, strategic development for low carbon economy, and so they've been introducing electrical buses as part of that. But usually, as of now, there are no government incentives for, let's say, turning from engines which are fuel oil based into electric cars. Not yet, I would say. Hopefully, it will come, but I don't see.
Because Kazakhstan has a large car industry, right? So.
Unless... No, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan has a local manufacturer. Kazakhstan has a couple of assembly factories. The largest one is in a region called Kostanay. It used to be there since Soviet Union time. They produced diesel engine for trucks for the entire Soviet Union, and then they converted that now into an assembly factory for different types of vehicles. But the car industry, I wouldn't say is developed in Kazakhstan. It could develop more, but actually the current prime minister is promoting, quite strongly car industry development. But, international brands are not really so keen yet to invest there. That there were earlier investments in Uzbekistan. Also, Kazakhstan is not yet there much. Some, again, assembly operations, simple assembly operations are now being conducted in Kazakhstan, but there is no parts and components supplying industry yet been established.
So, I mean, I have quite a number of my listeners are entrepreneurs who started car manufacturing and things in a small scale because, as you know, electric car is quite simple to make. So if some of them are interested to look at Kazakhstan as a potential market, so which ministry should they connect to, or it should be the private sector?
Well, I'm not sure if there is a private sector in Kazakhstan. I'm joking in a way, but private sector is still very tiny, very small. So it should be either government or some public companies linked with government de facto. Although we are pushing, of course, for increasing private sector participation in the economy, as of today, still that's quite limited. So I don't know, participants to this channel, what kind of profiles they have, if they are small producers of, parts and components, or if they produce the entire completed car. Those that can afford buying an electric car, I think they just look at Tesla at the moment, I would say. If it is buses or some public vehicles, then obviously it's a different story. But the good thing is that Kazakhstan, for possible investors, is that they should look at the market of the neighboring countries altogether, not only of Kazakhstan, so of Central Asia, which has a population of about more than 60 million people. Kazakhstan per se has only 19 million people now. Uzbekistan has more than 34 million people. I think the potential would come from aggregating this region into a single market and trying to serve it, with some manufacturing production. But and in that sense, the government could help because they aspire to become a leader, maybe not in everywhere, but generally a leader in the region. And so, if somebody proposes a production that could cover not only Kazakhstan per se, but the region, there could be some incentives that the government could provide. It's not an easy...
But they can connect with you. You said one of your hat is you are also starting a consulting company. Yes, they can connect with you and you can help them connect.
Yeah, sure. I can, me and a few other, experts who are there in Kazakhstan can definitely help connect with people in this industry and trying to identify opportunities. Absolutely. What I'm trying to say is that unfortunately, private sector is still not playing the role that we would like it to play. Still, the government is playing too much a pervasive role in the economy, until the global financial crisis erupted in 2007, 2008. Kazakhstan was under a good trend of, gradually decreasing the role of the government in the economy and improving that of the private sector. But then this global financial crisis, which hit in particular the financial sector in Kazakhstan, pushed the government introducing a number of programs, which now de facto have been crowding out, private sector, and have been, reintroducing this role of the state in many different ways. Now we are strongly pushing for introducing different types of structural reforms, and the coronavirus, COVID-19 generated crisis is a typical, crisis that could give you that opportunity of introducing structural reforms. And possibly the most important structural reform that Kazakhstan has to introduce, going, to the essence of the economic system, is really, allowing more contribution to be provided by the private sector. facing down, abandoning many of these government programs and allowing, private initiative to flourish. So with that, although I'm saying that now the private sector is playing a small role, I am also optimistic that in the next 3, 5, 10 years, the growth could be exponential in terms of private sector participation in the economy of Kazakhstan.
And also Kazakhstan is, if not one of the richest country in the Central Asia on a per capita GDP basis, no?
Definitely, yes. If you look at the World Bank classification, first is Kazakhstan, and then if you look into also Southern Caucasus, second would be Azerbaijan. Right, so Kazakhstan has been included as an upper middle income country, or defined by the World Bank as an upper middle income countries already for more than 10 years. And again, when there are crises like global financial crisis, 2007, 2008, but for Kazakhstan, the most important crisis was the one of 2014, 2015, the one of, commodity prices, shocks, oil price shocks. Why? Because Kazakhstan had a fixed exchange rate regime with the US dollar until August 2015, and then it had to change, had to embrace, to change into a flexible exchange rate regime, and that was accompanied by a drastic devaluation of the local currency of the tenge, 50% or more. And that made all of a sudden the country, in international comparisons at least, much poorer, because of this devaluation of the 50% devaluation of the tenge. But still, it's an upper middle income country, and over the last few years until 2020, until the breakout of the COVID-19 crisis, Kazakhstan, has always remained in that range of upper middle income country, to the point that international organizations like ADB, World Bank, EBRD have been discussing about graduation policy for Kazakhstan, meaning, that institutions are considering, international financial organizations are considering that Kazakhstan has to graduate from being a recipient of a full package of benefits from IFIs. The European Union, in fact, has already, moved Kazakhstan from, a normal level where other Central Asian countries are located, such as Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, into a country where they can only do support for the region, but not specifically for Kazakhstan. And that's an implication of being an upper middle income country. Now, per capita GDP, if you measure in US dollar terms, is close to $9,500 US.
Yeah, I think next one is Turkmenistan also here. But just one intriguing question. I work in Turkmenistan now, and our clients are very keen to meet the Paris commitments and looking at renewable energy options quite seriously. And Kazakhstan is fossil fuel capital in a sense, with Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan in that region, right? So how do you feel the government attitude has changed in the last 4 years that you have been, or even people's attitude about climate change, no?
That's a difficult question, because, I see that a lot of lip service, a lot of good intentions being declared, but no action. There is a so-called coal lobby in Kazakhstan, which still is the old guard, of course.
Yes,
are these old oligarchs?
They are everywhere. Yes.
Are the old oligarchs, which made their fortune over the last. All Central Asian countries became independent in 1991, so it's exactly 30 years ago. So for the first 20 years or so, a few families, oligarchic families, they were able to, benefit quite substantially from their privileged positions and enjoying, their lives. Now, several observers, including myself, are suggesting that the time for those guys has come, and they were able to benefit, over these decades for this situation. But now it's time that they look at the future. They think at their, younger generations. They think at the, sustainability of our Mother Earth, so to speak, and they change their attitude. But they still have their grips on power like that, and so this coal lobby remains quite strong in Kazakhstan. And de facto, I see very difficult to make real conversions in technologies, for example, from really coal-based technologies into more green technologies. Of course, I'm not talking about completely renewable energies, but even shifting from coal-based, to gas-based technologies, it takes time, and renewable. Of course, many international companies that were involved with oil production, now they're gradually shifting into renewable, in solar, wind, and you name it. International financial organizations like ADB, EBRD, World Bank, they've been helping a lot, changing that, introducing new systems for promoting this kind of developments. So while declarations are there, and the government policy tends, and also the president of Kazakhstan in his speeches, puts all the right words, saying, talking about environmental sustainability and the complete shift towards a green economy. The Astana International Financial Center and others are start issuing green bonds and all that, but still. I don't see a real change in the technology. And so when you go and build up infrastructure, different types of infrastructure, it's very difficult still to convince government officials that although on paper they may look a bit more expensive, if you look at just the cost of realization of new plants, to use green technologies instead of coal-based technologies. They still tend to prefer, they think they don't calculate any health-related cost, and they just try to promote all types of technologies. When I was in one of the first days 5 years ago, when I started as country director for ADB in Kazakhstan, I still remember there were proposals to increase energy efficiency of many of the machines that are used in these coal and heating plants that pollute the environment so much. Of course, okay, even keeping those plants, but just converting, these old machines into modern, efficient, energy efficient machines would require, of course, some capital cost to do that. But the benefits are tremendous in terms of environmental sustainability and all that. Still, they were talking about that 5 years ago, and they are still talking about it today. And I didn't see any change. And then, as I said, I look at the mountains, and then I look back, and I still see, all this pollution coming out. So if the government were really more determined, I think over 5 years, I would have observed a real change. I would have, witnessed something concrete, but I wasn't able to see that. Now, just a few days ago, the government appointed a new Minister of Energy, who used to be Minister of Environment until, for a few years. This person, Magzum, is quite a smart guy, I would say, and I think he has kind of sensitivity and sensibility with regard to environmental issues. And again, maybe I tend to be a bit too optimistic, despite bad records. But there could be some change moving forward. But I will tell you once I see it. I'm kind of sick and tired of listening and hearing all the nice buzzwords from government. They say yes, 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 but then de facto, I want to see some concrete change.
Well, I mean, a lot of things has happened. Uzbekistan has such a low auction price in energy. We are in solar power. I mean, we are doing a solar and energy efficiency project in Turkmenistan next year. So those fossil fuel-led countries, I think, are changing very slowly. Hope the penny drops soon. But just a personal question. I mean, in the midst of all these 20 years, ADB, World Bank, and all these organizations have changed dramatically as well. I mean, when I did a solar project in 2001, I was told that these are tiny little thing, we don't get involved. Now we are financing big project. When was your penny drop moment on climate change, when you felt saying, no, this thing is serious, I need to do something about it?
Oh, well, I like mountains. I like climbing mountains. I climbed the tallest mountain in the Altai mountain range, which is in the border between Russia and Kazakhstan. It's 4,506 meters. And I did that as part of this promotion of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Okay, we did it with UN and EBRD. We were a group of enthusiasts climbing this mountain, and we went with one very experienced alpinist from Kazakhstan who climbed several times Everest even without oxygen, and a group of guys from that mountain area called Altai Pro, 5 or 6 alpinists who were our guides climbing. And there is a glacier there, because it goes quite high, and they were showing us, the levels of where the glaciers was before, like 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and where the glacier was when we went there, and that was in 2019. Okay, 2 years ago. And that shocked me completely, because it was very real. You see in front of your eyes, you are, at 3,500 or maybe even 4,000 meters of height. Nobody usually, very few people go there. So you are in this enchanted place where pristine nature and so on. And then you can see the clear signs of these glaciers that is receding, and getting down and down. And I said, my God, what are we doing? So that was the first time that I really touched, I wouldn't say touch with hand, but really saw with my eyes. And that was, how to say, hitting me inside, because you go there to be in the nature and to climb the mountain, with that kind of mood, and then you see the signs of this climate change so clearly. It was kind of dramatic, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Also, remember, you were in Cambridge. We were in Cambridge together, right?
Were we?
I thought so.
I was not in Cambridge, actually. I studied in Japan.
No. When we went that ADB 2 weeks Cambridge sustainability thing.
No, I was not there, sorry.
Okay. Because I remember there, I think, Vinod Thomas was with me. So this Antarctic research team, they were showing the cube that they drilled, the cylinders, 100 years old, 200 years old, and they were showing the captured carbon concentration. It's quite fascinating. This guy saying, oh, this is from 1800, this cylinder, because it's so deep, and then
right.
you can carbon test and show you, and then you said, oh my God, it is. And you went and saw the real thing, right? We are saying that sort of captured from the past. Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that was something. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah.
Now, how do you think we should retired people help these younger entrepreneurs who has to solve the climate change problem? We can advise and help, but I don't think you and I will be in active workforce for another 20, 30 years. That's when the climate problem will be solved. What do you tell a young entrepreneur or someone who's starting new, who has this burden of solving climate change as an individual, also as a society? No, what do you tell them? What should they do?
Well, trying to find wise words for young people is always difficult. What can you say? You know, I like young people when they have an opportunity to express themselves for what they are inside. So if they have a dream, if they have an objective, if they see a particular issue, a particular problem they want to solve. Usually, what is the difference with our age and people in their 20s is in a sense a bit of enthusiasm, a bit of lack of experience, which allow you to make a lot of mistakes in the positive term, but also a much higher level of idealism. And I would never try to suffocate this idealism, but try to nurture it. And even if it could sound like some crazy idea, as long as this idea are meant for good, are meant to help individuals, the community, the nations, and the entire world, I think young entrepreneurs should not be binded by fear or binded by the fact that they may not have enough instruments or they may not have enough means to do so. Eventually they can mobilize people, they can mobilize finance, they can mobilize elder people with experience and technology, money, to realize their dreams. So I would say never stop. I would say don't be afraid if you think that your idea could be too much, above you, because that's the way how good improvements and changes are brought in by entrepreneurs, actually. So realizing dreams even beyond any kind of expectations, I think it's what we should help young people do, meaning take your risk. When you have families, when you enter in a different stage of your life, maybe more difficult to take risks because you feel a lot of different responsibilities. But when you're young and then you have that entrepreneurial spirit, take all the risks that you need to take and try to challenge the world in front of you. That's my suggestion. Don't be too conservative.
Yeah, every crazy idea is a very good idea, no? I mean, not many people are bold enough to be crazy. I'm still trying.
That's right. That's right. I will tell you some other time what I'm doing in Dubai and what other, but that's what I'm saying. When you are very young, in your 20s, you can take that risk. Then when you build up families or you have a different, in your 30s, your 40s, 50s, it becomes a bit more difficult because you're facing a number of responsibilities around you. But now in your so-called retirement, age or phase, you can take any sort of risk. Why not? And and so you have your pension that helps you taking care of your of the necessities of your life and health and all that. But then we are here, to challenge the world in front of us, and especially that's a message for young entrepreneurs, I would say.
Yeah, I think that on the last note point you made, that's a long conversation. We need to have another time.
Yeah, we need to have, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
thanks.
Thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else I could have asked you?
Well, You could have asked me a lot of other questions, but privately, not in an open conversation. So I think you did a great job, and it was my great pleasure to share this 1 hour or so with you. It was nice to reconnect, and I wish you and all your followers all the best with your program.
Thank you for joining us this week. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to our show. Also, leave your comments and review if you enjoyed today's episode. Follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter at shasni for updates. That's SHASNIE. Once again, this has been Energypreneurs, connecting you to the innovative opportunities in solar power, batteries, and electric vehicles. Stay tuned.